Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about what modules are in Python and how we can use these modules to improve upon our use of Python. So what exactly is a module in Python? A module in Python is a file that consists of some Python code that we can import into another Python file. These Python code files are denoted by the file name .py, just like all other Python files we have created previously. Within these Python modules, we can define a bunch of different things, such as functions, classes, and variables in one centralized area. The collection of these values within the Python modules are called attributes, which can be accessed readily by calling their name. However, we will talk about how to do this shortly. Alright, so cool. We know that within modules, we can now store our functions and other pieces of data in a separate Python file. But what are the real benefits does that give us? Couldn't you just keep everything in one Python file? Well, you certainly could, but there are numerous benefits that modules provide. One such great benefit of modules is that we can simplify our main chunk of code by storing relatively large pieces of code elsewhere. So, instead of having all of your function definitions in our main piece of Python code, we can replace it with a simple import statement within your main piece of Python code. Think of this as having a storage unit somewhere and storing anything you don't need readily in that area. Another important advantage that we should talk about is through breaking up your code in your modules, it is easier to maintain your code, as if one of your Python functions is causing you problems, you can isolate that problem to the module that is causing the problems, rather than having to examine your main piece of code, which could be thousands of lines of code long. Alright, so currently, we have at a minimum a broad understanding of why modules in Python are beneficial to us in our Python code. But how do we go about creating and using modules? To create a module, we must first create a primary Python file. So let's create an example that we can work on throughout this video. Let's use the example of our previous video and say that we want to create a simple user database for our veterinarian center. Within this main piece of code, let's say that we can call any user within our simple database and be returned all of the information we have on that client. Additionally, let's say that we want to use a module to store the function that we use to add a new user to our database. So, we don't really need to do anything in our main piece of code yet. Let's create an additional Python file called vetDatabase, and this is our module. Now, within this Python file, we're going to create a Python function called newClient. So, let's say that for every new client we want to know their first name, their last name, their type of pet, their pet's name, and then let's add a kwarg, or a keyword argument here at the end, so that we can add any additional keyword pair that we want. I will leave a link in the description below if you want to learn more about keyword arguments. Now that our new client function is completed within our module, we can save it and go back to our main code file. Now that we are in our main code file, to retrieve the function we wrote in the vetDatabase Python module, we need to include an import statement. This will allow our Python file to access any of the functions or anything else we previously wrote in the newly imported Python file. We are now ready to begin adding clients to our database. Let's say client 1 is going to equal the following. We can call our imported Python file names like so: vetDatabase dot and then the name of the function within the module. As you can see here, our PyCharm IDE actually recognizes our function and offers it as a suggestion in our autofill. So let's click enter on the autofill. And that is really it. You can now enter our information about our user here and store that information in our variable called client1. In actuality, we would need a tuple or a list to store these clients inside an actual database. However, for this example of one client, it is not really necessary. One other really cool thing that we can do is give our Python functions within the modules a shortcut name. Let's say that vetDatabase.newClient is too long for us, and we want to simplify this code further. So we can come back up to the top here and state that from our module name, and that is the vetDatabase file, import our function name, so newClient, as NC. NC obviously standing for new client, but you can give any name you want here. Then, in our code, we can remove this big long thing of text here and simply replace it with NC, as we just told Python above what we want that to stand for. Thank you for checking out this video, and I hope it helped your understanding of what modules are in Python and how you can use modules to simplify your Python code. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and consider checking out our Patreon to support the channel. However, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about the information I provided in this video, please leave a comment down below and I will do my best to address your concerns.